My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. My phone buzzed while I was standing in the kitchen, my hands still wet from washing rice, the evening news murmuring behind me like background noise I no longer listened to. I almost ignored it. At my age, nothing urgent ever comes through a phone anymore. It's usually spam, or someone forwarding prayers, or a distant relative asking for help they never asked before. But something made me dry my hands slowly, carefully, as if my body already knew what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. The screen lit up. A notification from the family WhatsApp group. The same group that had been quiet all day. Too quiet. I tapped it. The photo loaded slowly. Too slowly. First a blur of white. Then flowers. Then faces. Smiling faces. Faces I knew better than my own reflection some days. My son's face. His wife's face. Standing under lights. Wearing wedding clothes. Surrounded by people who looked happy, proud, invited. Married. Yesterday. I stared at the screen. I read the caption again. And again. My chest felt hollow. Like the air had been pulled out of me without warning. I scrolled up, hoping, stupidly, that I'd misunderstood. That this was an engagement party. A rehearsal. A joke. It wasn't. My son didn't call. He didn't text. I found out from his wife. I stood there longer than I should have. The rice burned. The news ended. Another program started. I didn't notice any of it. All I could hear was a soft ringing in my ears, the kind that comes when your body realizes something before your heart can defend itself. Why was I the last to know? I typed a message, deleted it, typed again, deleted that too. Finally, I sent something harmless, safe, the kind of message a woman sends when she doesn't want to sound hurt. When was this? 3 minutes passed. 5, 10. Then the typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. My daughter-in-law replied, yesterday. It was very simple. Very simple. That's how my exclusion was described. Like a small inconvenience. Like something that didn't matter. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to ask how. I wanted to ask what kind of mother finds out about her sons wedding through a screen while strangers clapped in the background. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I stayed polite. I stayed small. I see, I wrote. A lie. Another message came through almost immediately, like she'd been waiting for it. We thought it would be easier this way. Easier for who? I sat down at the kitchen table. My legs felt weak, like they didn't belong to me anymore. 40 years. That's how long I'd been a mother. 40 years of school runs, hospital nights, packed lunches, unpaid sacrifices that no one writes down but every mother carries in her bones. And somehow, somewhere I had become optional. The phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't the group chat. It was a bank notification. Account access updated. I frowned. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Another message followed before I could even process the first. Joint account access removed. Removed. I read it slowly, word by word. Like maybe if I took my time, it would rearrange itself into something less cruel. That account had been there for years. The one I opened when my husband was still alive. The one I trusted my son with when he said it would make things easier. Easier. That word again. My chest tightened. Not panic yet. Just confusion. The kind that sits heavy and cold. I called my son. It rang. Once. Twice. Then voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I didn't trust my voice not to break. Instead, I sat there in silence, staring at the wall, wondering when exactly I stopped mattering. When I went from being his mother to being a problem that needed managing quietly. Another notification popped up. This one from the family group again. Someone had shared a video. A short clip. Laughter. Music. The bride dancing. My son clapping. His smile wide and careless, like nothing in the world could touch him. I watched it once. Then again. That smile. That was new. He never smiled like that at home anymore. My hands curled into fists without me telling them to. I felt anger rise, sharp and sudden, but it didn't explode. It sank. Deep. Heavy. The kind of anger that waits. I finally called again. This time he answered. Mom, he said quickly, like he'd been caught doing something he wasn't supposed to. I was just about to call you. A lie. I knew at the moment he said it. I saw the photos, I said softly. Too softly. Congratulations. There was a pause. A breath. Someone whispering in the background. It was last minute, he said. Things just happened. Things always happen without you, I thought. Out loud, I said nothing. You could have told me, I said finally. I'm your mother. Another pause. Longer this time. We didn't want drama, he replied. Drama. That's what my presence had become. Not love. Not history. Drama. I would never ruin your happiness, I said. And I meant it. That was the saddest part. I know, he said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. We just thought this was best. Best for who? The call ended shortly after. Polite. Controlled. Empty. I sat there long after the phone went dark. My reflection stared back at me from the screen. Older. Smaller. Quieter than I remembered. I thought about all the times I stayed silent to keep the peace. All the times I chose understanding over confrontation. All the times I told myself that love meant letting go. That night I didn't sleep. At 2:17 a.m., my doorbell camera sent a notification. Motion detected. I opened the app, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain yet. A figure stood outside my gate. A man. Older. Familiar. He held an envelope in his hand. And behind him, just barely visible in the dark, was my son's car. That's when I realized something much bigger was happening. And whatever they were hiding from me had already reached my front door. My name is Nana May, and even now I can still see that envelope when I close my eyes. The doorbell footage replayed itself automatically, looping the same 10 seconds over and over like my phone wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. The man outside my gate shifted his weight from one foot to the other, glancing down the road, then back at my door. He wasn't young. His shoulders sagged slightly, like someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. In his hand, the envelope looked thick. Official. The kind of paper people use when they don't want to speak directly. Behind him, parked across the street with its headlights off, was my son's car. I paused the video. My fingers hovered over the screen. My heart thudded slowly, deliberately, as if it were measuring something. I didn't open the door. Not yet. I sat on the edge of my bed, my nightgown twisted in my hands, wondering how many decisions had been made about my life without my consent. The bell rang again, louder this time. I stood, smoothing my hair like appearances still mattered at 2 a.m. When I opened the door, the cool night air hit my face first. The man straightened immediately. Mrs. May, he asked, already knowing the answer. Yes. He handed me the envelope without meeting my eyes. I was asked to deliver this tonight. By who? I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. Long enough. Your son, he said finally. The words landed heavier than they should have. I took the envelope. It felt heavier than paper. He nodded politely and walked away, not waiting for questions, not waiting for permission. I stood there watching him disappear into the dark. My son's car started quietly. The engine hummed. Then it pulled away without stopping, without a wave, without a glance at the house he grew up in. I closed the door and leaned against it. The envelope pressed against my chest like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own breathing, your own thoughts, whether you want to or not. I carried the envelope to the dining table, placed it carefully in front of me, and sat down. I didn't open it right away. I poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. I folded my hands the way I used to when I waited for bad news in hospital corridors. After everything I sacrificed, I thought. The sentence didn't finish itself. It never did. When I finally opened the envelope, my hands were steady. That surprised me. Inside were copies, property documents, my property documents, the farmhouse, the land I worked on for 40 years, the house my husband and I built room by room, paycheck by paycheck, highlighted sections, signatures circled in red, a note attached with a paper clip. This is just paperwork, the note read. Don't worry. We'll explain. We'll explain. I scanned the pages. My name was there, but so was my son's and his wife's. Joint ownership. Effective immediately. I flipped through faster now, my breath shallow. My signature appeared on one page. Familiar. Too familiar. I didn't remember signing it. A cold feeling crept up my spine. Not fear yet. Something quieter. Something more dangerous. I picked up my phone and searched my messages. Weeks back. Months back. I found a WhatsApp voice note from my son, sent late one evening. Mom, I just need you to sign something so the bank stops bothering me. It's nothing big. I remembered that call. I remembered trusting him. I remembered signing papers without my glasses because I didn't want to seem difficult. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from my daughter-in-law. Did you get the envelope? Straight to the point. No greeting. Yes, I replied. Good. We'll talk tomorrow. Please don't overthink it. Overthink. As if this was imagination. As if property didn't mean power. As if land didn't mean control. I didn't reply. At dawn, I received another notification. A calendar invite. Subject line, wedding debrief, family. Family. I laughed. A short sound that surprised me with how sharp it was. They hadn't invited me to the wedding, but they wanted me present for the explanation. By the time morning light filled the house, exhaustion sat heavy behind my eyes. I dressed carefully, not elegantly, just dignified. A soft blouse, simple earrings, the kind of outfit you wear when you don't want anyone to accuse you of being emotional. The meeting was at their apartment. When I arrived, the door opened before I knocked. My daughter-in-law stood there, perfectly put together. Makeup flawless, smile controlled. Come in, she said. My son didn't stand up when he saw me. He stayed seated, his phone face down on the table like it was more important than I was. We just want to clear things up, he said quickly. I sat. I placed the envelope on the table between us. You transferred my property, I said. His wife sighed softly. No, we protected it. Protected it from who? The farm needs management, she continued. And honestly, Nana, you're not getting any younger. There it was. I felt the humiliation rise, hot and sudden. Not because of her words, but because my son didn't object. He stared at the table like the wood grain had suddenly become fascinating. You should have told me, I said. We didn't think you'd understand, she replied. I nodded slowly. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. That seemed to confuse them more than anger would have. So the wedding, I said. You didn't think I'd understand that either? My son finally looked up. We wanted a fresh start. A fresh start. Without me. I stood. Calmly. My legs didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. I see, I said again. On my way out, my daughter-in-law added softly, we're still family. Of course. Family. Only when it was convenient. That afternoon, I received an email from a law firm. Subject line, clarification required. Attached was a document I had never seen before. A digital will. And according to it, I had already agreed to everything. I stared at the screen, my reflection faint in the glass. The realization hit slowly, then all at once. This wasn't carelessness. This was planning. And whatever they thought I wouldn't notice was about to change everything. My name is Nana May, and the first time I realized my life had been rewritten, it wasn't my son's voice I heard. It was a stranger's. The call came while I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the same mug of tea I had reheated twice without drinking. My phone rang once, then again, an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. I didn't. That choice would change everything. Mrs. May, the man asked. Yes. This is Daniel Foster, calling from Crestline Legal. We're following up regarding your digital will. The word landed like a dropped plate. Digital. Will. Together. I didn't request a call, I said. There was a pause. Papers shifting. Keyboard clicks. Then, carefully, our records show you finalized the document 3 months ago. 3 months ago, I was planning my wedding. I didn't finalize anything, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. I see, he replied. Then we may have a problem. My hand tightened around the counter. What kind of problem? Well, he said, choosing his words the way people do when they're about to hurt you politely. The will was signed using your verified identity. Facial recognition. Voice confirmation. Time-stamped. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It came out thin and strange. That's not possible. Mrs. May, he said gently. The system doesn't make mistakes. But people do. I ended the call and sat down hard on the chair behind me. My chest felt tight, like something was pressing inward. Facial recognition. Voice confirmation. I thought of the countless times my son had asked me to repeat phrases for his new app project. The videos. The recordings. Me joking, trusting, never imagining. After everything I sacrificed, I had handed them my own voice. My phone buzzed again. A family group chat notification. The one I hadn't muted because some foolish part of me still wanted to belong. My daughter-in-law had sent a message. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. No question mark. No greeting. Another message followed immediately. The lawyer says everything is legal. I stared at the screen. Legal. The word they always use when they want you to stop asking if something is right. I typed slowly. Did you use my recordings? The typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, you consented. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my security app. Scrolled back through weeks of footage. There it was. My son in my living room late one night, holding my phone, asking me to repeat a sentence. Just say it clearly, Mom. I had smiled. I always smiled for him. That smile looked different now. By afternoon, I was at the bank. The teller greeted me by name, the way she always had. That familiarity shattered a moment later when her screen froze and her smile tightened. I'm sorry, Mrs. May, she said. Your account access is limited. Limited how? She lowered her voice. You're no longer the primary controller. The room seemed to tilt. I own that account. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. According to our records, ownership was shared. Effective last week. Shared. Again. I left without shouting. Without demanding a manager. I walked to my car slowly, like I needed to prove to myself I was still in control of my body, even if nothing else. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the house creak, wondering how many rooms would soon no longer be mine. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A WhatsApp voice note from my son. Mom, please don't panic. We did this to protect you. You've always trusted us, remember? Protect. The word tasted bitter. I replayed the message. Again and again, listening not to what he said, but what he didn't. No apology. No permission. No regret. In the morning, I received an email notification. Subject line, wedding venue booking confirmation. I hadn't booked a venue. The email opened to photos. My wedding photos. Tables decorated. Guests seated. My son and daughter-in-law laughing in the background. And there, in one image, stood my husband. The old man, they liked to call him. Except the name beneath the photo wasn't his. It was mine. Listed as a witness. Not a bride. I felt something inside me finally snap. Not loudly, not dramatically. Quietly. Cleanly. That was the moment I stopped trying to understand them and started preparing. Because if they could erase me once, they could do it again. And next time I wouldn't be watching. My name is Nana May. And the day they declared me irrelevant was the day they realized I was still breathing. The invitation arrived as a notification. Not a call. Not a message. A calendar alert. Family meeting mandatory. Mandatory. As if love could be scheduled. As if obedience came with reminders. The location was my son's house. The one I helped him buy. The one I signed papers for when his credit wasn't enough. I dressed carefully, choosing something neutral, something that said I wasn't there to fight. I had learned long ago that calm unsettles people more than anger. When I arrived, the doorbell camera blinked blue. I waved. It felt strange, waving to a machine in a house that used to be mine in every way except on paper. The door opened. My daughter-in-law stood there, phone already in hand, recording. Not secretly, openly. For transparency, she said. I nodded. Of course. Inside, everyone was seated. My son, his wife, her parents, a man I didn't recognize, a woman with a leather folder on her lap. No one stood when I entered. I took the only empty chair. The woman with the folder smiled tightly. Mrs. May, I'm a family mediator. Mediator. The word people use when they've already decided who's wrong. She continued, we're here to clarify boundaries and expectations going forward. Going forward. As if my past, was irrelevant. My son finally spoke. Mom, this isn't an attack. I looked at him. Really looked. He couldn't meet my eyes. That's good, I said, because I didn't come prepared to defend myself. A flicker of irritation crossed his wife's face. She leaned forward. We just want peace. There it was. The word they always hide behind. Peace at any cost. Usually mine. The mediator opened her folder. It's been brought to our attention that there have been misunderstandings regarding financial access, property involvement, and decision-making authority. Misunderstandings. I thought of the block card, the rewritten will, the wedding photos where I had been reduced to a footnote. I understand, I said softly. That surprised them. I could tell. My daughter-in-law frowned. You do? Yes, I replied. I understand exactly what you're doing. Silence. The mediator cleared her throat. Perhaps we should focus on solutions. Agreed, I said. I reached into my bag and placed my phone on the table. I'd like to play something. My son stiffened. Mom. It's my voice, I said gently. I think I deserve to hear it. I pressed play. The room filled with sound. My own voice. Clear. Calm. Just say it clearly, Mom. His voice followed. Recorded. Unaware. Young. Confident. No one spoke. The mediator slowly closed her folder. I wasn't aware there were recordings involved, she said. My daughter-in-law's smile faltered. Just a little. We had consent, she said quickly. I looked at her. Did you? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Her father shifted in his seat. This feels excessive. So does stealing someone's identity, I replied. My son finally looked up. We were trying to help you. I nodded. Then why didn't you ask? He didn't answer. Instead, his wife spoke. Because you would have said no. There it was. The truth. Slipping out without permission. The mediator stood. I think we need to pause this meeting. No, I said. Calm. Steady. I think we need to continue. I stood too. For years, I said, I stayed quiet to keep the peace. I let things slide. I forgave without apologies. I believed that patience was strength. I looked around the room. I was wrong. My daughter-in-law's phone was still recording. Good, I said, glancing at it. Make sure you save this. I picked up my bag. One more thing, I added. The lawyer you hired? I've already spoken to him. My son's face drained of color. You did what? He whispered. I smiled. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Clearly. I'm not angry, I said softly. I'm just done being uninformed. As I walked out, the doorbell camera blinked again. This time I didn't wave, because they weren't watching anymore. They were panicking, and I hadn't even told them the worst part yet. My name is Nana May, and the first real power I gained wasn't money. It was information they assumed I would never find. I didn't go home after that meeting. I drove past my street, past the familiar turn, past the comfort of routine. Instead, I parked outside a small cafe near the courthouse, the kind with scratched tables and weak coffee. Neutral ground. Safe ground. My phone vibrated before I even sat down. A WhatsApp message from my son. Mom, please come home. We need to talk. Need, not want. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email. There it was. A forwarded message from the lawyer. Sent accidentally, I suspected. People get careless when they think they've already won. Subject, amendment confirmation, effective immediately. I opened the attachment. The document was clean, professional, precise. Every word chosen to sound reasonable, protective, loving. It removed my control for my own good. It reassigned authority to ensure continuity. It listed me as non-decisional. Non-decisional, as if I were furniture. My hand shook, not from fear, but from clarity. I scrolled down, and then I saw it. A signature. Not mine. Close. Similar. But wrong. The angle was off. The pressure uneven. Whoever signed, it hadn't known how my hand curves at the end of my name. They hadn't known the pause I always make before the final letter. After everything I sacrificed, they still didn't know me. The cafe door opened. I looked up. My husband walked in. They called him the old man, like it was an insult. Like age erased worth. He saw my face and didn't ask questions. He sat down, took my hand. You found something, he said. Yes. Is it bad? I swallowed. It's illegal. That got his attention. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said something unexpected. They underestimated you. I almost laughed. Everyone does. He shook his head. No, they underestimated us. He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. Smart doorbell footage. Time-stamped. Clear. My son. Late night. Entering my home. Alone. Then leaving with a folder. Property documents. My chest tightened. They think I'm just background, I whispered. My husband squeezed my hand. Then let's stay quiet a little longer. That night I went home, but not to sleep. I gathered papers. Old files. Originals. The ones people forget about, because they assume no one keeps physical proof anymore. At 1:07 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A voice note from my daughter-in-law. Her tone was different now. Sharper. You're creating unnecessary stress. Think about how this looks. Looks. Always about appearances. I didn't respond. At 3:32 a.m., a bank alert arrived. Attempted access denied. Someone was trying to move funds. Someone panicked. In the morning, I received a court notification. A hearing request had been filed. Not by me, by them, to formalize what they had already taken. They were rushing. People only rush when they're afraid. I dressed carefully again. This time, not to disappear, but to be remembered. As I left the house, I glanced at the mirror. I looked tired, older, wiser, still alive. At the courthouse, my son avoided my eyes. My daughter-in-law clutched her phone like a shield. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked at me. Mrs. May, she said, do you contest this amendment? I took a breath. Yes, I said. And on what grounds? I met my son's gaze. Forgery. The room went very quiet. The judge raised an eyebrow. That's a serious accusation. I know, I replied. That's why I brought evidence. My daughter-in-law whispered something urgently to my son. He didn't answer. The judge nodded. We'll review the materials. As we stood to leave, my son finally spoke. Mom, he said quietly, we can still fix this. I looked at him. When? I asked. Before or after you finished erasing me? He had no answer. As I walked away, I felt something shifting. Not victory. Momentum. And somewhere behind me, I heard my daughter-in-law say the words she never meant for me to hear. This wasn't supposed to go like this. No, it wasn't. And the worst part for them? I still hadn't revealed who my husband really was, or why the lawyer was about to recognize his name. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The bank alert came while I was standing in the checkout line, holding a small tin of Christmas cookies I used to bake every year for my family. My phone vibrated once. Then again. I almost ignored it. I wish I had, because the moment I read those words, account access limited. Please contact your administrator. Something inside me finally cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a bone that had been aching for years, finally giving way. I stood there too long, staring at the screen. The cashier cleared her throat. Someone behind me sighed. I mumbled an apology, paid in cash, and walked out into the cold. My hands were shaking, but my face was calm. That had always been my skill. Staying calm, staying polite, staying quiet so everyone else could stay comfortable. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and listened to the engine idle. I didn't cry. Not yet. I replayed my husband's voice from 2 nights earlier. My ex is coming to Christmas dinner with us. The way he'd said it casually, like he was telling me we were out of milk. Like I didn't deserve a discussion. Like this house, this life, this family wasn't something I had helped build for decades. I called the bank. After the usual holds and recorded apologies, a young man finally came on the line. His voice was kind, professional, distant. Mrs. May, he said, tapping on his keyboard, your account was restructured yesterday. Restructured how? I asked. There was a pause. You're no longer listed as a primary decision maker. The words didn't land at first. They floated, hovered. then sank straight through me. Then who is? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Your husband. And another authorized party. I knew before he said the name. I felt it in my chest, that familiar tightness, like a warning I'd ignored too many times. His ex-wife, he said. I laughed. A small, broken sound that surprised even me. That's not possible, I said. There must be a mistake. There's documentation on file, he replied gently. Signed. Notarized. Signed. Notarized. While I was buying groceries. While I was wrapping gifts. While I was trying still to keep the peace. I ended the call and sat there until the cold crept through my coat. That was the moment something shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. I realized I had been asking permission in my own life for far too long. When I got home, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Christmas decorations half finished. Garland still in the box. I walked into the living room and saw her coat on the chair. My husband's ex hanging there like she belonged. Like she'd always belonged. My husband came in from the kitchen, drying his hands. You're back early, he said. I went to the bank, I replied. He froze. Just for a second. But I saw it. Why? He asked too quickly. I met his eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just asked, why does she have access to our accounts? Silence filled the room. Thick. Heavy. He looked away. It was easier this way. Easier. That word again. Everything had always been done because it was easier for him. For them. Never for me. You signed papers without telling me, I said. She's good with finances, he replied. And it's temporary. Temporary. Like my feelings. Like my place. That's when I noticed the folder on the dining table. Brown. Official. My name typed neatly on the front. I walked over and opened it before he could stop me. Property documents. My stomach dropped. The house. The land. The farm I had worked for 40 years. The place where I buried my parents. The place where my children learned to walk. My name wasn't there. I looked up slowly. You removed me, I said. He didn't answer. And that was answer enough. I didn't want to upset you before the holidays, he said finally. I nodded. That old reflex. But inside, something hardened. I realized this wasn't about Christmas. This wasn't about his ex. This was about control. About deciding who mattered and who didn't. That night, I lay awake listening to voices downstairs. Laughter. Her laughter. Familiar. Comfortable. Like she'd never left. Like I was the guest now. I opened my phone and scrolled back through years of messages. Sacrifices. Apologies. Silence. How many times had I stayed quiet to keep the family together? How many times had I told myself, this is just how marriage is? Around 2 a.m., I made a decision. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten. I didn't cry. I called a lawyer. She answered the next morning. A woman about my age. Her voice steady. Listening without interrupting. By the time I hung up, my hands were steady again. Information. That's what she gave me. And power. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that waits. At breakfast, my husband talked about seating arrangements for Christmas dinner. Where his ex would sit. Who would carve the turkey. I buttered my toast slowly and listened. When he finished, I said, I won't be here. He looked surprised. What do you mean? I said softly, I'm spending Christmas elsewhere. With who? He asked. I smiled. Not sweetly. Clearly. With my dignity. He scoffed. Don't be dramatic. That's when I realized something else. He was scared. He just didn't know it yet. Because that afternoon, the lawyer called back. And she said something that changed everything. There's a clause they didn't expect you to notice, she said. And Nana, it works in your favor. I stared out the window at the farm. At the land they thought they'd quietly taken from me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. But I still didn't know who else had signed those papers in my name. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The bank alert came while I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the wedding photo I still hadn't taken down. Account access temporarily limited. I didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at the screen like it might correct itself if I waited long enough. It didn't. I remember thinking, How does a mother lose access to her own life without signing a single paper? I called the number immediately. Please hold, the automated voice said, cheerful. Too cheerful. Hold music. A woman finally picked up. Yes, ma'am. The account permissions were updated yesterday. By who? I asked. Pause. By the authorized representative. My hand tightened around the phone. I am the authorized representative. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm sorry, she said carefully, but you're no longer listed as primary. That word again. No longer. I laughed once. Sharp. Bitter. That's impossible. She cleared her throat. There's a digital authorization on file. Digital. Of course it was. I hung up without saying goodbye. That's when I felt it, not panic. Clarity. Someone had moved without me. And they'd done it quietly. I drove to the house. Our house. The one I bought after my first husband died. The one my son said he'd help manage after I remarried. The smart doorbell blinked blue when I walked up. It didn't unlock. I rang it anyway. Footsteps. Then my daughter-in-law's face filled the screen. Oh, she said. You're here. Not hi. Not is everything okay. Just, oh, I can't get in, I said calmly. She tilted her head. That's strange. Silence stretched. Well, I asked. She sighed like I was inconveniencing her. We updated the access codes. For security. For whose security? She smiled. Everyone's. That smile. The one she uses when she thinks she's already won. I need to come inside, I said. Now. She hesitated. Then the door unlocked. My son was sitting at the dining table with his laptop open. Paper spread everywhere. Property documents. I recognized the header immediately. My stomach dropped. What is this? I asked. He didn't look up. We're just organizing things. Organizing what? He finally met my eyes. You've been stressed lately. There it was. The excuse. The soft accusation wrapped in concern. I'm fine, I said. He exhaled. Mom, you got married without telling us until the last minute. That wasn't like you. I stared at him. You mocked my husband at my wedding. His jaw tightened. That was just jokes. No, I said quietly. That was humiliation. My daughter-in-law slid into the chair beside him. We were worried, she said. About influence. I blinked. Influence. She folded her hands neatly. Your new husband. He's older. We thought maybe he was pushing decisions. The room went very still. I felt something shift inside me. A slow, dangerous calm. So I said, you removed my bank access, changed my door code, and started touching my property because you were worried. My son rubbed his temples. We were trying to protect you. I laughed again, this time louder. You didn't protect me, I said. You erased me. That night, I sat in my car and cried for exactly 3 minutes. Then I wiped my face and made one call. The lawyer my first husband trusted. The one I hadn't spoken to in years. He answered on the second ring. Nana May, he said. I was wondering when you'd call. That stopped me. What do you mean? He hesitated. Because something crossed my desk last month. My chest tightened. What kind of something? A request, he said carefully. To activate a dormant clause in your estate file. I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't request anything. I know, he said. Silence. Then, your son did. The world tilted. The next morning, I opened my email. There it was. A scanned document. My name. My signature. Only it wasn't mine. I stared at it. Zoomed in. The curve of the M was wrong. The loop on the Y too sharp. Forgery. Clean. Confident. Someone had practiced. My phone buzzed. A WhatsApp voice note. From my daughter-in-law. Her voice was light. Almost kind. Hi, Nana. Just wanted to say, we're doing this because we love you. Don't fight it. Let us take care of things. I replayed it. Again. Again. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. And for the first time in months, I smiled. 2 days later, I returned to the house. This time, I didn't ring the bell. I walked in. My access had been restored. My son stood up when he saw me. You changed the code, he asked. No, I said. You did. Confusion flickered across his face. I placed a folder on the table. Sit, I said softly. Something in my voice made him obey. My daughter-in-law hovered near the stairs. "What's this?" she asked. "Information," I said. "The kind you should have checked before you moved so fast." They opened the folder. Bank records, time-stamped, property clauses, a notarized affidavit, my lawyer's letterhead. My son's face drained of color. This isn't." "Oh, it is," I said. "You forged my signature." My daughter-in-law stepped back. "We were told." "You were told nothing," I said. Silence. I leaned forward. "The moment you filed that request," I continued, "you triggered a review." My son swallowed. "What review?" I held his gaze, the one that looks very closely at intent. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then at me. Fear. Real fear. "Mom," he whispered, "what did you do?" I stood, adjusted my coat, and said the words that changed everything. I stopped staying quiet. As I walked out, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "This is the probate office," a man said. "We need to speak with you urgently about a previously undisclosed beneficiary." I froze. "Beneficiary?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Someone who isn't your son." My heart started racing. "Who?" I whispered. There was a pause. Then, "That's what we need to discuss." And that's when I realized the secret they were hiding wasn't the only one in this family. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The probate office was quiet in a way that made every breath feel loud. The man across the desk kept adjusting his glasses like he was stalling, like he didn't want to say the name. I watched his hands instead of his face. Old habit. "Before we continue," he said, "I need to confirm something." I nodded once. "Did you ever create a secondary digital will?" "No," I said immediately. "Did you ever authorize a DNA-linked beneficiary update?" My stomach dropped. "No." He exhaled slowly. "Then we have a problem." He slid the tablet toward me. On the screen was a timeline. Dates, updates, logins. One entry was highlighted in red. "DNA verification successful, beneficiary confirmed." My vision blurred. "I've never taken a DNA test," I said. He looked up. "You haven't," he agreed. "Then how?" "Someone else did," he said gently, "and matched to you." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. "Matched how?" He hesitated again. "Familial match," he said. "Parent level." The words echoed. "Parent. Level." I shook my head. "That's impossible." But even as I said it, a memory surfaced. A hospital room. Years ago. A nurse apologizing. Forms rushed through. A baby crying down the hall. I hadn't thought about it in decades. I swallowed. "Say the name," I said. The man looked at the screen, then at me. Elena Brooks. Everything went silent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at a name I hadn't heard since 1994. Elena. The baby they told me didn't make it. The baby they said had complications. The baby I never held. "You're saying she's alive," I whispered. The man nodded. "And she's legally listed as a beneficiary," he added. 50%. My chest tightened. "Who added her?" He tapped the screen. "The request originated from an IP address tied to your son's home." I laughed softly. Of course it did. I drove straight to the house. This time I didn't feel fear. I felt something colder. My son was pacing when I walked in. My daughter-in-law was on her phone, whispering urgently. They both froze when they saw my face. "You knew," I said. My son opened his mouth, then closed it. "You knew she was alive," I repeated. My daughter-in-law spoke first. "We found out last year." My heart pounded. "How?" She hesitated. "A DNA app," she said. "One of those family tree ones." I stared at my son. "And you didn't think to tell me?" He looked down. "We weren't sure how you'd react." I laughed. Again. That same sharp sound. "You thought I wouldn't want to know my child was alive." "She's not really," my daughter-in-law started. I turned to her so fast she stopped mid-sentence. "Finish that," I said quietly. She swallowed. "She's not really part of this family." That's when something inside me snapped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "She's my daughter," I said, "which makes her more family than you'll ever be." My son flinched. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "What's not fair is you finding her before I did." Silence. Then he said it. The thing that explained everything. We thought if you met her, he said slowly, you might change things. My blood ran cold. Change what? He hesitated. The house, he said. The will. The money. There it was. The truth. Raw and ugly. My daughter-in-law crossed her arms. We were protecting our future. I nodded. At least she was honest. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Elena's profile stared back at me. Dark hair. My eyes. A smile that felt familiar in a way that hurt. She was 31. Married. 2 children. My grandchildren. I covered my mouth. I almost missed my son's knock. Mom, he said softly. We need to talk. I didn't look up. You already talked, I said. You talked behind my back. We panicked, he said. You planned, I corrected. Silence. Then, she doesn't even know you're her mother, he said. I looked at him then. What? We didn't tell her, he admitted. She thinks she was adopted privately. The room spun. You had her name, I said. Her DNA. Her life. And you kept her from me. His voice broke. We didn't want to lose you. I stood slowly. You lost me the moment you decided what I deserved to know. The next morning, my lawyer called. We need to move quickly, he said. Your son's actions triggered a fraud review. What does that mean? I asked. It means, he said carefully, he could be charged. I closed my eyes. I don't want to destroy him. I know, the lawyer said. But intent matters. I thought of the forged signature, the locked door, the mocked wedding. Do what you have to, I said. That afternoon, I sent one message. To Elena. Hello. My name is Nana May. I think I might be your mother. I stared at the screen. Minutes passed. Then, typing bubbles. They stopped. Started again. Finally, the message came through. I've been waiting my whole life for someone to say that. I burst into tears. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my daughter-in-law. Her tone had changed. Urgent. Sharp. Did you contact her? Yes, I said. You had no right. I smiled sadly. I had every right. She lowered her voice. You don't understand what you're doing. I paused. No, I said. You don't. That evening, my son showed up with red eyes. They're investigating me, he said. I nodded. I know. He sank into the chair. I never meant for it to go this far. I sat across from him. Neither did I said. But here we are. He looked up. Will you help me? I studied his face. The boy I raised. The man he became. I will tell the truth, I said. Nothing more. Nothing less. His shoulders sagged. That was my answer. Late that night, another call came in. Unknown number. I answered. Nana May, a woman asked. Yes. This is Elena. My heart stopped. I'm scared, she said. There are things I don't understand. I swallowed. So am I admitted. She hesitated. There's something else, she said. What? Someone already contacted me, she whispered. My stomach dropped. Who? There was a pause. Then, your daughter-in-law. The room went cold. What did she say? I asked. She told me, Elena said softly, that you didn't want me. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. I sat at the kitchen table long after the call with Elena ended, staring at the dark reflection of my own face in the window. I kept hearing her voice, soft and uncertain, repeating the same words in my head. She told me you didn't want me. I had lived through humiliation, betrayal, even silence, but this was different. This was theft of truth. Someone had rewritten my motherhood without my consent, and they had done it carefully, deliberately, knowing exactly where it would hurt the most. I called my daughter-in-law immediately. She didn't answer. I texted once, then twice. Finally, 3 dots appeared. They vanished. Then the phone rang. Her voice was tight, defensive before I'd even spoken. I asked her calmly why she contacted Elena. She told me she was trying to soften the situation. I asked her what she had said. She paused, then replied that she'd explained I was fragile, that I had moved on, that reopening the past might be painful for me. I told her that wasn't what Elena heard. She sighed and said, I may have implied you weren't ready. That was when I realized how skilled she was at half-truths, how easily she turned protection into erasure. When my son came home that night, I was already seated in the living room, the same place I used to read him stories when he was small. I asked him to sit. He looked tired, older than I remembered, like the weight of his own decisions had finally settled in his bones. I told him what Elena said. He closed his eyes. He didn't deny it. He said his wife was afraid that if Elena entered my life, everything would change. I asked him quietly why my life was something they felt entitled to manage. He didn't have an answer. He never did. The next morning, Elena and I spoke again. Longer this time. She told me about growing up adopted, about always feeling like a piece of her story was missing. She said she had taken the DNA test on a whim, never expecting it to lead anywhere. She asked me why I never came looking for her. My throat tightened, but I told her the truth, that I was told she died, that I mourn a child I thought I never got to hold. She cried then. I cried too. Somewhere in the middle of that shared grief, something stitched itself back together. By afternoon, the lawyer called with an update. The investigation was moving faster than expected. The forged signature, the unauthorized filings, the altered access permissions, none of it looked accidental. I asked what would happen to my son. The lawyer said outcomes depended on cooperation and intent, but consequences were unavoidable. I thanked him and hung up, feeling the familiar ache of loving someone who had hurt me deeply. That evening, my daughter-in-law finally confronted me face to face. She accused me of destabilizing the family, of inviting chaos by dragging the past into the present. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I told her calmly that the past had always been present. It had simply been hidden from me. I told her that contacting my daughter behind my back crossed a line that couldn't be smoothed over with apologies. She said she did what she had to do. I replied that so would I. Later that night, Elena sent me a photo. 2 children smiling at the camera. My grandchildren. She asked if I wanted to meet them someday. I said yes without hesitation. It felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a dim room. But even in that warmth, I knew something else was coming. Secrets this big never surface alone. Just before midnight, another email arrived from the probate office. A new attachment. A supplemental document tied to the original estate file. I opened it slowly, my hands steady now in a way they hadn't been before. As I read the first line, my breath caught. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about intent and history and a decision made long before my son ever touched a document. The file referenced a witness I didn't recognize, a name from my past I hadn't thought about in decades, someone who knew the truth about the hospital, about the forms, about the baby they told me was gone. And suddenly, I understood something that made my chest ache with both relief and rage. My son hadn't uncovered the first secret in this family. He'd only stumbled into the middle of it. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The witness named in the document sat across from me 2 days later, her hands folded so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had turned white. She was older now, hair fully gray, but I recognized her the moment she looked up. She had been a nurse at the hospital where I gave birth all those years ago. Not just any nurse, the one who avoided my eyes when they told me my baby didn't survive. I felt the air leave my lungs as memory slammed into me with cruel precision. She started crying before I even spoke. She said she had waited years for this moment, years hoping the truth would come out without her having to say it out loud. It hadn't, so now she would. She told me the hospital had made a mistake during a chaotic shift change. 2 babies born minutes apart. 2 exhausted mothers. 1 set of forms misfiled. By the time the error was discovered, 1 family had already left with a child they believed was theirs. The administration decided it would be less traumatic to let things stand rather than correct it. They told me my baby had complications. They told me it was kinder this way. They told her to stay quiet. And she did, for 31 years. I didn't scream. I didn't faint. I just nodded as tears streamed down my face, the quiet kind that come when grief finally finds its right shape. My daughter hadn't been stolen by choice or malice at first. She had been lost to cowardice, and then, once lost, protected by silence. The lawyer confirmed what the document implied. The hospital settlement, buried and sealed decades ago, included a contingency clause. If the truth ever surfaced, the child would be legally recognized. Rights restored. History amended. That was the clause my son accidentally triggered when he tried to take control. In trying to protect what he thought was his, he had unlocked everything. When I told Elena, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. She said she wasn't angry. She said she finally understood why something in her life had always felt slightly misaligned, like a picture hung crooked. She said she wanted time, not answers all at once. I told her I would wait as long as she needed. I had already waited 31 years. What was a little longer? The investigation concluded faster than anyone expected. My son was spared criminal charges after returning access, reversing filings, and formally admitting fault. The lawyer called it mercy. I called it consequence enough. He apologized to me one evening, really apologized, without excuses or soft language. I listened. I accepted the apology, but I did not erase the damage. Some cracks don't close. They simply stop spreading. My daughter-in-law moved differently after that. Quieter, careful. She no longer corrected me or spoke for me. Power had shifted, not loudly, not cruelly, but permanently. She knew it. So did I. The house was returned fully to my name. The accounts restored. The smart doorbell reset. But something else changed too. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to prove my place. I occupied it without explanation. Dignity does that. It doesn't announce itself. It simply stands. On a Sunday afternoon, Elena came to visit alone. We sat at the same kitchen table where so much had broken. She brought photos from her childhood. I showed her the box of things I'd saved for a baby I thought I lost. We cried. We laughed softly. We didn't rush. When she left, she hugged me longer than necessary. Neither of us said goodbye. We said next time. That night, as I was locking up, my phone buzzed with one final email. From the lawyer. Subject line, Addendum, Secondary Beneficiary Inquiry. I opened it slowly. The message was brief, almost casual. During the review of sealed hospital documents, another irregularity had surfaced. Another name. Another birth record flagged, but unresolved. A sibling possibility. A second thread pulled loose. I sat down heavily in the chair. After everything, after all this truth, there might be more. I closed my eyes and let the silence settle around me. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't confused. I was ready. Ready to hear whatever came next. Ready to speak my name into whatever truth was still hiding. Because this time, no one would decide for me. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. This story wasn't finished yet.